My name's Leonard Carter. I'm 65 years old, and 2 months ago, I got kicked out of my own house. Yeah, you heard that right, 65. Evicted by my own flesh and blood. And right now, I'm sitting behind the wheel of my dusty old Toyota Corolla, staring at the same neighborhood that used to wave at me every morning, now pretending I don't exist. But here's the kicker. They really thought an old man like me was going to quietly disappear. They forgot something critical. I know where every single skeleton in this family is buried, and more importantly, I know exactly where their dirty money comes from. Before I take you on this wild ride, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe if you want to follow how this all unfolds, and drop in the comments where you're watching from. This isn't just my story anymore. It's ours now. So how the heck did a 65-year-old end up driving Uber, homeless, and burning with more rage than regret? Well, buckle up. It all started with family, or at least what I used to think was family. I was married for 37 years to a woman named Margaret, a force of nature, beautiful, smart, and ruthless when she needed to be. Together, we built a life, a big house in the suburbs, 2 kids, and what everyone thought was the perfect marriage. Except, behind closed doors, Margaret ran the show. See, she was the one from money. Her father, James Caldwell, was one of the biggest real estate moguls in the state. But his empire wasn't exactly built on clean contracts and good intentions. When I married into that family, I was just a nobody, a mechanic, grease under my nails, debts on my back, and dreams bigger than my bank account. But Margaret saw something in me. Or maybe she just saw someone easy to control. For years, I let her steer the ship. I played the dutiful husband, the handyman, the fixer, not just of broken sinks, but of shady deals, hidden ledgers, and cash that needed to quietly disappear. I wasn't proud, but when you've got mouths to feed and promises to keep, you make choices. Then came the betrayal. It started subtle, less conversation at dinner, more whispered phone calls between Margaret and my eldest son, Tyler. Then, suddenly, legal papers, divorce, eviction. They stripped my name off everything. The house, the cars, even my pension, gone. Tyler, my own son, stood in that courtroom, eyes cold as ice, and backed his mother like I was nothing more than an intruder in my own life. They thought they'd erased me, but what they forgot is that the quiet fixer remembers everything, every bribe, every shady offshore account, every envelope of cash slipped under a table. And now, as I stare at the Uber app blinking on my phone, watching my first ride request pop up, something inside me clicks. They think I'm broken. They think I'm finished. But they just gave me the perfect cover, and they have no idea that their past is about to catch up with them. My first ride that night popped up. Rafael, Airport, 15 miles away. I sighed, accepted, and hit the gas. As the city lights blurred past my window, my mind spun. It wasn't just the humiliation of driving strangers around to survive. It was the bitter taste of betrayal. Margaret, Tyler, even Sophia. They all knew. And they all threw me out like I was a worn-out pair of shoes. But as the wheel turned beneath my hands, a memory cut through me like a blade. 10 years ago, late at night, Margaret was in our home office, pacing back and forth, whispering into her phone. I was pretending to fix the heater in the hallway, but I heard every word. It needs to disappear by tomorrow. The offshore in the Caymans is maxed out. Back then, I brushed it off, pretended not to hear, pretended not to care. That's how you survive in a family like the Caldwells. You pretend. But now, every syllable of that conversation rang crystal clear. I pulled up at the airport. A sharply dressed man in a tailored suit slid into the back seat. He was mid-call, speaking rapid Spanish, barely acknowledging me. "Westbridge Hotel, please," he muttered without looking up. As I drove, I couldn't help but listen. Transfers, pending documentation, deadlines. I knew that language all too well. I'd heard it behind enough closed doors in my time to recognize when something wasn't clean. When I dropped him off at the hotel, fate handed me something. As he stepped out, a small card slipped from his pocket. I scooped it up before he noticed. Printed in silver foil, Orion Holdings, with an international number stamped beneath. My pulse kicked up. Orion Holdings. I'd heard that name before. Years ago, buried in late-night arguments between Margaret and her father. A shell company. One of many they used to scrub money from shady government contracts. It was like the universe was dealing me back into a game I never wanted to play. But now I had every reason. I pulled the car over, shut off the app, and stared at the card. If Orion was still active, then part of the Caldwell empire was still as rotten as ever. And me? I knew exactly where the rot started. A mental image hit me like a freight train. The old safe behind the bookshelf in Margaret's home office. She always said it was for personal documents. Yeah, right. I'd seen her pull cash, ledgers, even a burner phone out of that thing. The key? Third drawer of her desk, tucked behind some fake insurance papers. But now I was a man without a house, without access, without anything. Or so they thought. I glanced at my beat-up backpack on the passenger seat. Inside, next to a spare shirt and a stick of cheap deodorant, was the only thing they forgot I had. My old black notebook. Names, dates, accounts, secrets. Years of being the invisible fixer for the Caldwell family scribbled in ink nobody ever bothered to notice. They think they erased me. What they don't know is that I'm the only one who can erase them. The next morning, I parked my car outside a rundown diner on 5th Street. Cheap coffee, free Wi-Fi, and, most importantly, a place where nobody asks questions. I pulled out the card, Orion Holdings, and typed the number into a reverse lookup site. Nothing. No public records. No business filings. Just a dead end. Exactly how shell companies like it. But I wasn't some rookie. I spent 30 years watching how this game is played. I knew where the cracks were. So I opened my notebook. Page 14. A name, Elliot Strauss. Accountant. Used to be Caldwell's go-to guy for offshore laundering before he disappeared 6 years ago. Last I heard, he was hiding in plain sight, running a pawn shop downtown. If anyone knew whether Orion was still active, it was him. I started the car, headed downtown, and pulled up to Strauss & Sons Pawn. The place looked like it hadn't seen a broom since the 80s. I stepped inside. The air smelled like dust and regret. Behind the counter sat Elliot. Same slicked-back gray hair, same nervous twitch in his left eye. When his gaze landed on me, he froze, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Leonard. Damn. Thought you were dead. Not yet, I said, stepping forward. And you and I, we've got unfinished business. His hands trembled as he shuffled some papers. Look, I'm out, all right? I've been out. Orion Holdings, I said, sliding the card across the counter. Tell me everything. Elliot's face went pale. He looked around the empty shop, locked the front door, and pulled the blinds shut. You shouldn't be saying that name out loud. Not anymore. He wiped sweat from his forehead. They're still active, bigger than ever, but it's not just real estate scams now. They moved into something nastier. Cryptocurrency laundering. Shell corporations layered over shell corporations. Untouchable. Nothing's untouchable, I muttered. Elliot leaned in. You don't get it. They've got a new player running things. Someone worse than Caldwell ever was. Who? He hesitated, then whispered a name that made my blood run cold. Tyler. My own son. Elliot kept talking, but I barely heard. The pieces were clicking together faster than my brain could process. Margaret was always ruthless. But Tyler? He'd learned from the best, and clearly graduated to a whole new level. And if Tyler was the one pulling strings now, then he was the reason I got erased. Not just Margaret, not just family politics. This was about money, power, control, and I was a liability. Elliot pulled out a flash drive from his drawer, slid it across the counter. I don't want any part of this, but this is a backup of the Orion ledger from 3 years ago. Names, transfers, IP logs, passwords might be outdated, but it's a start. I stared at it. That tiny piece of plastic could be the beginning, or the end. If they find out you're poking around, Elliot shook his head. They won't just erase you. They'll bury you. I slipped the flash drive into my pocket. Let them try. I walked out of that pawn shop with something I hadn't felt in weeks. Purpose. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about taking back everything they stole from me and burning their dirty little empire to the ground. I drove aimlessly for a while, the weight of that flash drive heavy in my pocket, heavier in my mind. Tyler, my own blood, the kid I raised, the kid I taught how to ride a bike, how to change a tire, how to stand up for himself, now sitting at the helm of a money-laundering empire. Somewhere between disbelief and rage, reality sank in. This wasn't the Tyler I knew. Or maybe it always was, and I just refused to see it. I pulled into a vacant parking lot behind an abandoned strip mall. No cameras, no nosy pedestrians. I opened my laptop, plugged in the flash drive, and held my breath. The files were a mess of spreadsheets, encrypted folders, and transaction logs dating back years, offshore accounts, crypto wallets, dummy corporations in Panama, Dubai, Singapore, dozens of them. And then, nestled deep inside a folder labeled Archive Closed, Do Not Access, I found a file named Legacy TC PDF. I clicked it open. It was a scanned contract, a trust agreement. Tyler Caldwell, primary beneficiary. Established just 3 months before I was served those divorce papers. Inside were clauses that made my stomach churn. In the event of incapacitation, death, or legal compromise of James Caldwell, deceased, or Margaret Caldwell, sole control of Orion Holdings and all affiliated assets, transfers to Tyler Caldwell. So this wasn't some accidental takeover. They planned it. My removal wasn't about family drama. It was a business decision. I knew too much. I'd seen too much, and they couldn't risk me hanging around long enough to connect the dots. I scrolled further. A payout schedule. Payments to lawyers, offshore brokers, fake charities designed to funnel money. But one line stopped me cold. A payment, $250,000, wired to a private investigator. Memo. LC. Final resolution. Me. Leonard Carter. They paid someone to resolve me. I slammed the laptop shut, chest pounding. I scanned the empty parking lot, suddenly hyper-aware of every sound, every shadow. This wasn't theoretical anymore. I wasn't just dealing with fraud, corruption, or betrayal. I was officially a target. But here's the thing about pushing an old man into a corner. We don't run. We don't fold. We come out swinging. I grabbed my notebook and flipped to a section I hadn't touched in years. Allies. People who owed me. People I helped back when I still had a seat at the table. One name stood out. Darren Chu. Ex-cybersecurity consultant. Brilliant. Paranoid. Got caught skimming from a Caldwell project once. I convinced James to let him walk with a severance instead of calling the feds. Darren disappeared into the ether after that. I picked up my phone. The number was still the same. Half miracle, half fate. It rang once, twice. Then a voice. Gruff. Suspicious. Who is this? It's Leonard. Silence. Didn't think I'd ever hear that name again. I need your help. Another pause, then a deep sigh. Yeah, I figured this day would come. Where are you? Off 5th and Walnut, old strip mall. Stay put, don't move. And for God's sake, stay out of sight. Call ended. I leaned back in my seat, eyes scanning the lot. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel alone. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. They wanted me erased. But I was about to rewrite the whole damn story. It didn't take long. 20 minutes later, a matte black Prius rolled into the parking lot, windows tinted so dark it practically absorbed sunlight. The driver's door cracked open, and out stepped Darren Chu. Same as I remembered him. Mid-40s, thin as a rail, hoodie pulled tight over his head, and those sharp, calculating eyes that never stopped moving. He approached cautiously, scanning the lot like a hawk. Damn, Leonard. You look like hell. Yeah. I chuckled dryly. It's been that kind of year. He slid into the passenger seat of my Corolla without another word. Once the door shut, he pulled a small device from his bag and scanned the car. Bug sweeper, he explained. Standard practice. You poke the hornet's nest you're poking. Can't be too careful. After a moment, the device beeped twice, then went silent. Clean. For now. I pulled out the flash drive and tossed it into his lap. Orion Holdings. They're still running. Tyler's at the wheel. His eyebrows shot up. Tyler? No way. The kid was soft. Not anymore, I said, jaw tight. He's the reason I lost everything. The house, the pension, the marriage, all of it. Darren plugged the drive into his tablet, fingers flying across the screen. Jesus, this is deep. Layers on layers. Whoever set this up knew exactly what they were doing. He kept scrolling. This isn't just laundering. This is cartel-level sophistication. Crypto mixers, burn wallets, nested shell companies. Hell, they're even washing money through charity foundations and green energy startups. He paused, frowned, then turned the tablet toward me. See this folder? Project Ember. Know what that is? I shook my head. Neither do I, but it's big. Bigger than anything else on this drive. Heavily encrypted. Military-grade stuff. We crack that, and I guarantee you we're not just blowing the lid off Tyler. We're looking at federal crimes that'll take the whole Caldwell empire down. His eyes darted back to the screen. There's an access key. Partial. Looks like the other half's stored offline. Guess where? Let me guess. The safe behind Margaret's bookshelf. Darren smirked. Bingo. I exhaled. Of course it would come back to that cursed house. The same house they threw me out of. The same house that had once been my sanctuary. Now a vault guarding the secrets that could bury them. Darren leaned back. Look, you're playing with fire here. You don't just walk into that house. You don't stroll in, grab a file, and walk out. I know, I said. But I built half of that house. I know every lock, every creak in the floorboards, every blind spot in the security system. They think I'm just some washed-up old man behind the wheel of an Uber. I turned to look him dead in the eye. Let's make sure they keep thinking that. Darren nodded slowly. All right, I'm in. But we do this smart. We do this right. No mistakes. He reached into his bag, pulled out a small black box, and set it on my dashboard. First, burner phones. No more using your own. Second, we scout. I'll set up remote surveillance, drones, frequency scanners. We map the place top to bottom before you even set foot near it. I stared at that box for a moment, then grabbed it. It felt heavier than it should. Maybe because I knew. The moment I opened it, there was no going back. Let's get to work. For the next 2 days, we planned. Darren worked like a machine. His Prius became a mobile command center. Laptops, signal boosters, scanners, portable drone gear. You name it, he had it. The man was a ghost with a toolkit. We set up shop 4 blocks from the house I used to call home. From there, Darren launched 3 micro-drones, each no bigger than a bird, silent, fast, almost invisible to the naked eye. All right, Darren muttered, eyes glued to the laptop. We've got a full perimeter scan coming in. The screen populated with blueprints, heat maps, and real-time video feeds. Security cameras, infrared sensors at the back gate, motion detectors on the east wall, and, he paused, zoomed in. They installed a biometric lock on the office door, fingerprint and retina scan. I leaned in. Retina? That's new. Darren nodded. And that's not all. Check this. He switched to another feed, inside the house. Looks like they upgraded. Private security. Not just cameras, armed personnel. Former military by the looks of it. I clenched my fists. Tyler's not playing games. No, but neither are we. Darren grinned. He opened another window. I cracked the maintenance schedules. Security rotates every 8 hours. The weak point, shift change between 2:00 a.m. and 2:15 a.m. Only one guard inside, one patrolling the perimeter. I stared at the screen, jaw tight. That's the window. Darren nodded. It is, but the biometric lock, that's the real problem. Can't bypass it? Not remotely, but we don't have to. He pulled up a 3D render of the lock mechanism. Biometric locks store backup credentials in case of sensor failure. If we can get physical access to the service panel, here, he pointed, I can clone the fingerprint pattern. The retina's trickier, but not impossible. How? Darren leaned back, cracked his knuckles. You still go by the house to pick up your granddaughter on weekends? I flinched. Not since they cut me off. Right, then we fake a delivery. He pulled out a high-vis vest and a clipboard. You walk up as a courier, drop off a package, get close enough to the panel to plant this. He held up a tiny magnetic bug, no bigger than a coin. It'll map the biometric data in under 30 seconds. I stared at the vest, the clipboard, the bug. My throat tightened. Walking up to that door, after everything. I know, Darren said softly, but this is how we get it done. I exhaled. Hard. Fine. When? Tonight, Darren started packing. I'll prep the signal scrambler, make sure the drone handles the comms intercept. You, practice your delivery driver smile. I tried for a second to imagine how it would feel, standing on that porch again. The same porch where I taught Tyler how to fix his first bike, where Margaret used to plant her spring flowers, where we used to drink coffee on Sunday mornings pretending we were normal. And now, it was enemy territory. One more thing, Darren said, tossing me an earpiece. The moment anything feels wrong, you bail. No hero stuff. I nodded, slipping it into my ear. Understood. But deep down, I knew. There was no bailing. Not this time. The sun dipped below the horizon as I pulled into the neighborhood I once called mine. Funny, how something can feel so familiar and so hostile at the same time. The streets were lined with the same perfectly trimmed hedges, the same pastel-colored houses, and the same neighbors who now refused to make eye contact with me. To them, I was a ghost, forgotten, erased. I adjusted the high-vis vest Darren gave me, set the plain brown box in my arms, and stepped out of the car. The clipboard tucked under my arm had a fake delivery manifest Darren mocked up. Looked legit, even had a QR code. The earpiece crackled softly. Darren's voice came through, calm but sharp. You're good. No motion on the east side. Guards still on perimeter sweep. You've got 3 minutes, max. I walked down the sidewalk, each step heavier than the last. When the house came into view, my stomach twisted. There it was. My house. Well, their house now. The same blue shutters I installed with my own hands. The same oak door I sanded and stained every spring. The same brass mailbox I bought for Margaret as an anniversary gift. I swallowed hard and approached. A security camera pivoted toward me. Darren's voice buzzed. You're clear. Facial match isn't flagged. They probably deleted you from the whitelist. Fitting. I rang the doorbell. A few seconds later, the door opened, just enough for the security chain to hold. Margaret, older, sure, but still sharp, perfectly polished, with that cold smile she reserved for strangers and enemies alike. Her eyes narrowed. Yes? My mouth went dry. Package for Caldwell, I said, holding up the box. Requires signature. She scanned me for a beat too long. Something flickered behind her eyes. Recognition? Suspicion? Maybe both. From whom? I tapped the clipboard. Client didn't say. Standard drop-off. Just need a signature. Margaret sighed. Fine. She undid the chain, opened the door just wide enough to step out. As she reached for the clipboard, I tilted the box slightly, angling it toward the office door behind her, just within range. The tiny bug Darren had taped to the underside activated, magnetically latching to the side panel next to the biometric scanner. Darren's voice clicked in my ear. Bug attached. Scanning. Hold position. 20 seconds. Margaret scribbled on the clipboard, her gaze flickering back to me. You look familiar. I forced a chuckle. I get that a lot. Her lips tightened. You know, you really remind me of someone I used to know. A man who didn't understand when to stay gone. The words hit like a slap, but I didn't flinch. Darren's voice. 10 seconds. Stay cool. Margaret leaned in slightly, voice lowering. Tell me, how does it feel, living beneath the people you used to call family? 5 seconds. I smiled. You'll find out soon enough. Her brow knit. What? Darren. Done. Move. I stepped back, offered a mock salute. Have a nice evening. Margaret watched me for a second too long, then shut the door. Hard. The moment the latch clicked, I turned, walked as calmly as possible back to the car, climbed in, and drove away, hands shaking but steady enough. Darren's voice was giddy. Leonard, you magnificent bastard. Full biometric data captured. We're in. As the house disappeared in my rearview mirror, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. Step 1. Complete. Now, it was time to open that vault. Back in Darren's Prius, the tension was electric. On his screen, lines of code scrolled like a waterfall. A 3D model of the biometric lock rotated slowly as Darren cross-checked the fingerprint pattern and retina scan against the security protocol. All right, he muttered. Fingerprint cloned, retina scan mapped, override token generated. A final line of code blinked green. Done. He spun the laptop toward me. Congratulations. You, my friend, are now officially Margaret Caldwell, as far as her security system's concerned. I exhaled sharply, feeling something tighten in my chest. Relief? Anxiety? No. Determination. So, when do we move? I asked. Darren leaned back, chewing his thumbnail. Not so fast. There's a complication. He tapped on a video feed. Check this. New addition. Hidden in the office corner, infrared trip sensor, silent alarm trigger. If we open the safe without disabling this first, the whole house lights up. I leaned in. Can it be bypassed remotely? Darren shook his head. Nope. Analog failsafe. No wireless connection. Old school, which means it has to be disabled manually. Inside the house. In person. I sat back, staring at the screen. My own house, booby-trapped against me. There's more, Darren added, voice lowering. During the scan, I intercepted a private text string between Tyler and a guy labeled HK. HK? Darren nodded grimly. HK stands for Harlan Kane, former PMC, hired muscle, dirty work specialist. Last job? Istanbul, a CFO who disappeared after testifying against his company. That's who Tyler's brought in. The pieces clicked fast. Tyler wasn't just securing the house. He was preparing for something bigger. Much bigger. I clenched my fists. They're planning to burn everything. Darren nodded. Looks like it. Project Ember? It's an asset liquidation plan. Not just money, properties, shell companies, offshore accounts. If it goes live, everything disappears. The Caldwell empire goes dark, untouchable. When? Darren flipped to a time-stamped message. 72 hours. Countdown's already ticking. 72 hours. That was it. My entire life, everything they stole from me would be scrubbed clean in 3 days unless I stopped it. I stared out the windshield, jaw clenched. Then we do this tomorrow night. Darren hesitated. Leonard, this isn't just breaking into a safe anymore. This is walking straight into a hornet's nest, knowing the Queen's watching. I know. And you're still in? I locked eyes with him. Darren, they took my house, my family, my name. They thought they buried me, but they forgot I'm the one who taught them where the shovels are. Darren grinned, dark and sharp. All right, tomorrow night, gear up, because after this, there's no going back. As he drove us back to the hideout, a thought burned through my mind like wildfire. They wanted me erased, but I was about to become the ghost they'd never outrun. The next day passed in a haze of preparation. Darren set up shop in a cheap motel room 2 miles from the house. The walls were lined with blueprints, digital maps, and surveillance feeds. He handed me a duffel bag loaded with gear, gloves, magnetic door bypass tools, signal jammers, and a handheld device rigged to disable the infrared trip sensor. This, Darren said, holding up the device, is your best friend tonight. Get within 3 feet of the trip sensor, press this, and it floods the circuit with a magnetic pulse. You'll have about 90 seconds before the sensor reboots. I nodded, committing every detail to memory. Entry point? I asked. Darren pulled up the drone footage. South side, utility door. It's not on the main alarm grid. Probably an oversight when they upgraded security. Lock is simple, mechanical deadbolt. Once you're inside, you move straight through the hallway, past the mudroom into the office. That's where the sensor is. And the safe? Behind the bookshelf, same as always. Biometric locks already spoofed. Once the sensor's down, you open the safe, pull the data drive, and get out. I nodded. And Harlan Kane? Darren grimaced. According to the security feed, he left the house 2 hours ago, probably running an errand, or prepping for whatever comes after Project Ember. You might actually have a clean window. Might. That word echoed. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. 65. Wrinkles deeper than last year. Hair thinner, eyes sharper. A man stripped of everything but one thing, the ability to finish what others are too afraid to start. Let's get this done, I said. At exactly 1:58 a.m., I pulled up 2 blocks away. Dressed in black, gloves on, earpiece in. Darren's voice buzzed in my ear. All clear, perimeter guards on the north side. You're good, move. I slipped through the side alley, hopped the neighbor's fence, and crouched behind the hedges. The utility door was right where Darren said. I pulled out the bypass tool. 2 twists, a click, and the bolt popped open. I slipped inside. The air smelled the same, lemon cleaner and stale betrayal. Down the hallway, past the mudroom. The office door stood ahead. The infrared trip sensor was mounted high in the corner, blinking softly. Darren's voice, "Sensors live. You're up." I crept forward, pulled the magnetic pulse device from my jacket, aimed it at the sensor, and pressed. A sharp buzz. The blinking stopped. Silent. "Sensor offline. 90 seconds. Move." I rushed to the bookshelf. Hands trembling but steady, I pressed the hidden latch on the underside, just like I'd done 100 times before, and the shelf swung open, revealing the wall-mounted safe. The biometric panel glowed blue. I pressed my thumb to the scanner. A soft beep. Then I leaned into the retina scanner. Another beep. The lock disengaged with a satisfying click. I swung the safe open. Inside, stacks of cash, passports, burner phones, and exactly what I was looking for. A matte black external hard drive labeled Orion Master Key. I grabbed it, stuffed it in my bag. Then something else caught my eye. A folder, plain, unmarked, thicker than it should have been. Curiosity got the better of me. I pulled it out, flipped it open, and froze. Inside were photographs, surveillance photos, of me, walking, driving, sitting in diners, dated 2 months back, right around the time I got kicked out. Attached was a memo. Subject, Leonard Carter. Status, pending termination. Directive, await green light from TC. My blood ran ice cold. This wasn't just exile. They had a contract on my life. Darren's voice snapped me back. 30 seconds. You gotta move. I shoved the folder into my bag and closed the safe. As I turned to leave, a noise. Footsteps. Close. Darren's voice sharpened. "Leonard, someone's inside. Move now." My heart kicked into overdrive. I bolted down the hallway, silent, practiced. Turned the corner, straight into the shadow of a figure stepping through the kitchen doorway. Tall, broad, and familiar. Harlan Kane. His hand went to his waistband. I didn't think. I lunged first. My shoulder slammed into Harlan's midsection before he could fully draw his weapon. We crashed against the kitchen counter, sending a bowl of fruit shattering to the floor. His elbow drove into my back, hard enough to make my ribs scream. But I held on, grabbing his wrist, twisting, trying to stop him from pulling that gun. "Leonard, move!" Darren's voice roared in my ear. "Perimeter guards heading to your location." Harlan roared like a bull, shoving me back. My back hit the fridge. His pistol came halfway up, but I was faster. I swung the duffel bag straight into his wrist. The gun clattered across the tile. He lunged for it, but I was already moving. Grabbed the heavy ceramic teapot from the counter and smashed it into the side of his head. He staggered, dazed but not down. Not down enough. His hands shot out, grabbed me by the jacket, and slammed me into the wall. "You should have stayed gone, old man," he growled. I gritted my teeth. "Yeah, people keep saying that." His fist cocked back, but I drove my knee into his groin. Hard. He folded just enough for me to grab the closest thing I could find, a cast-iron skillet, and swing, full force, across the side of his face. The impact echoed. Harlan hit the ground, out cold, or at least close enough. "Leonard, now. You've got 30 seconds before the next guard rounds the corner." I snatched the pistol off the floor, shoved it into my waistband, grabbed my bag, and bolted out the back door. The night air hit me like ice. Jumped the fence, rolled into the neighbor's yard, cut across the lawn, feet pounding the grass, and sprinted toward the getaway car Darren had parked 2 blocks down. As I rounded the last corner, the headlights flashed twice. I dove into the passenger seat. "Drive, drive," I barked. Darren floored it. Tires screeched. We shot down the street, away from the house, away from the chaos. In the rearview mirror, 2 security guards rounded the corner just seconds too late. One raised his radio, shouting, but we were gone. Gone, but rattled. My hands were shaking. My ribs throbbed. My knuckles were raw. But when I pulled the bag onto my lap and opened it, the hard drive was still there. The folder. Everything. Darren glanced at me. "Tell me you got it." I nodded. "Yeah, and more." I handed him the folder. As he flipped through it, his eyes went wide. "Jesus, they had a full kill contract on you. Surveillance, Tracking logs, authorized pending Tyler's approval. I stared out the window, jaw clenched. He wanted to make sure I didn't just disappear financially, but physically. Darren shut the folder, face grim. We've got enough here to ruin them. But Leonard, this folder? This isn't just about you. Look at this. He flipped to the last page. A list. Names. Dozens. People. Judges. Politicians. Bankers. Every single one of them. Paid off. Compromised. Owned by the Caldwell Empire. Darren's voice dropped. This isn't just a family scandal. This is systemic corruption. Nationwide. Silence filled the car. I finally spoke. Then we don't just take them down. We burn the whole rotten machine to the ground. Darren nodded, eyes hard. Then let's get to work. We drove straight to Darren's motel without saying much. The weight of what sat in that bag was heavier than gold, heavier than blood. It was the sum total of decades of corruption, betrayal, and survival. The moment we stepped inside, Darren triple-locked the door, pulled the blackout curtains, and fired up his equipment. Multiple laptops, signal jammers, an encrypted satellite uplink. His fingers danced across the keys like a man possessed. All right, he muttered. Let's see what your snake of a son's been hiding. He plugged in the Orion Master Key drive. Instantly, folders populated the screen. Financial records, shell corporations, offshore holdings, communications logs, everything. But one folder blinked red. Project Ember, execute. Darren clicked it open. A countdown timer filled the screen. 64 hours, 12 minutes. Files beneath were labeled purge accounts, asset liquidation, offshore transfer protocol, and final closure contingency. Darren cursed under his breath. This is it. Tyler's wiping the entire Caldwell footprint. Every shady deal, every account, every dirty dollar, gone in less than 3 days. I clenched my fists. Not if we stop it first. Darren nodded. But we can't just stop it, we have to leak it, broadcast it, make it irreversible. He turned toward the whiteboard filled with options. We've got 2 paths. He scribbled quickly. Option 1, law enforcement. Hand it over to the FBI. Let them run it. Downside? These guys have their hooks in law enforcement. Could disappear, get buried, or worse. Option 2, public exposure. Leak everything. Press, whistleblower networks, dark web forums. Blast it so wide, so fast they can't cover it up. I stared at the board. What's the risk on public exposure? Darren grimaced. Every assassin, fixer, and security goon on Tyler's payroll coming for us. This becomes survival, but it also guarantees the Caldwell dynasty burns. Permanently. I didn't hesitate. We go public. Darren grinned. Knew you'd say that. He spun back to his laptop. First step, data integrity. We package the files, encrypt them, seed them across mirrored servers. Once the leak goes live, it can't be scrubbed. Even if we go down, the truth stays up. As he worked, something caught my eye. A folder within the master key labeled Failsafe, LC. My initials. I opened it. Inside were video files. I clicked one. The screen flickered. Then a security feed from Margaret's office appeared. Date stamped 6 months ago. Audio was grainy, but clear. Tyler's voice. Mom, we have to move on him. He's the last loose end. Margaret. He's still your father. Tyler. No, he's a liability. She sighed. Fine, make it clean. My heart turned to stone. I clicked another file. A spreadsheet. Asset seizure plan, LC. Detailed instructions on how they orchestrated my financial wipeout. Fraudulent signatures, forged court orders, corrupt judges. Every last step meticulously outlined. It wasn't a messy divorce. It was a corporate-style execution. Darren's voice cut through. Leonard, there's something else. I turned. His face was pale. He pointed at a comms log labeled Active Contracts. At the top, a payment, dated 24 hours ago, to Harlan Kane. Amount $500,000. Memo, LC, confirmed termination. I swallowed hard. They know I survived the house job. Darren nodded grimly. Yeah, and they've doubled down. Harlan's not going to wait. He's coming. For a long moment, the motel room fell silent. Then I stood, zipped my jacket, and checked the pistol I took off Harlan. Good. Darren blinked. Good? Because for the first time, I'm not running. I locked eyes with him. I'm fighting back. Darren's fingers were already flying across the keyboard. All right. First wave of the data gets seeded to offshore cloud nodes in Iceland, Switzerland, and Singapore. Can't be wiped without a global shutdown. On the monitors, file transfer bars raced forward. Encrypted packages of financial crimes, blackmail evidence, and bribery trails were moving faster than anyone could stop. I paced the room, pistol heavy in my hand. Once it's out, we're targets. Darren nodded. We're already targets. The comm scanner on the side table chirped. Darren glanced at it and cursed. We've got chatter on a private frequency. Kane's crew. They've spotted my car. They're triangulating. My pulse spiked. How much time? Darren checked the window. 5-10 minutes tops. I checked the clip. Full, safety off. Then we finish this before they finish us. Darren yanked open a drawer and handed me another pistol. Smaller, sleeker. Backup, just in case. He flicked a switch on the wall. Instantly, metal shutters dropped over the motel windows. Reinforced. Standard issue when you work in my line of paranoia. The laptop chimed. Package 1. Live. A window popped up. A dark web whistleblower site. The files were uploading. Darren grinned. First batch is out. This is the beginning of the end for the Caldwells. But then the comm scanner crackled again. Target confirmed. Second floor, north end. Move in. Darren's grin vanished. They're here. Footsteps pounded the motel stairwell. Without thinking, I flipped the dresser in front of the door. Darren scrambled, grabbed his sidearm, and ducked behind the bed. The first kick hit the door. Hard. The frame cracked but held. Second kick. Splinters flew. Third. Boom. The door blasted open. 2 men in tactical gear rushed in, rifles up. I fired first. 2 shots center mass. One went wide, but the second caught the lead guy in the shoulder. He spun, dropped. Darren popped up and emptied 3 rounds into the second man's chest. Armor caught 1, but 2 more hit throat and chin. He went down gargling. Then a shadow filled the doorway. Harlan Kane. Calm. Collected. A silenced pistol in each hand. Leonard, he said, smiling. You should have stayed dead. I fired. Harlan sidestepped like it was nothing, the round smashing into the wall behind him. He fired back. Ping, ping. Darren dove behind the bed as the rounds tore through the mattress. I ducked, rolled, and crawled behind the tipped-over dresser. My breathing was ragged, fast. Harlan's voice echoed. You know, I was going to make it quick, professional. But now it's personal. I glanced at Darren. His eyes were wide, scanning. He wasn't panicking. He was calculating. He mouthed, window, back. I nodded. Darren raised his arm, tossed something, a flashbang. Bang, white light. Harlan cursed, stumbled. I bolted for the bathroom window, kicked it open, climbed halfway through, Darren right behind me, when a shot ripped past my ear, embedding into the tile. I dropped to the alley below, rolled, came up aiming. Darren hit the ground beside me. Harlan's head appeared in the window. He fired twice, but we were already sprinting. Darren hit the key fob in his pocket. His Prius, parked half a block away, blinked. We dove inside. Tires screeched as he slammed it into drive. Bullets cracked behind us. One punched through the rear window. Glass showered us, but neither of us stopped. We tore out of the alley, onto the main road. Darren flipped a switch. The rear license plate rotated, swapping numbers. That'll buy us a minute. I turned back. Harlan stood at the alley entrance watching us disappear, pistol still raised, expression cold as death. Darren floored it. Leonard, we need to finish this, now, before Kane finishes us. I gritted my teeth, clutching the bag with the hard drive. Then no more half measures. I looked Darren dead in the eye. We take it all public, every file, every name, every secret. Darren nodded, voice hard. Full detonation. He pressed a single key. The screen flashed, upload, global leak, confirm? He looked at me. I didn't blink. Do it. He hit enter. The moment Darren hit enter, the screen exploded with cascading progress bars. Uploading, uploading, uploading. Servers in Switzerland, Iceland, Singapore, Estonia, mirrored in real time. dark web forums, public whistleblower sites, encrypted drops to investigative journalists across 5 continents, a digital tidal wave. Darren grinned, adrenaline blazing in his eyes. It's done. There's no putting this genie back in the bottle. I stared at the screen as the Caldwell empire, my former life, unraveled in real time. Bank accounts flagged, wire transfers frozen, anonymous tips flooded law enforcement databases worldwide, and then the phone started ringing. Darren glanced at the caller ID, blocked. He smirked. Guess who? I nodded. Put it on speaker. Darren tapped the button. Tyler's voice filled the car, ice cold, controlled. Dad, what the hell did you just do? I clenched my jaw. I did what you never thought I had the guts to do. A heavy breath on the line. No panic, just fury barely contained. Do you have any idea what you've just done? You've signed your own death warrant. I chuckled. I've been dead to you for months. What's one more step? Silence. Then Tyler's voice dropped, dangerous and measured. You don't understand the scale. This isn't just about me, or Mom. You've crossed lines you can't uncross. Good, I snapped, because the lines you crossed a long time ago destroyed everything I ever cared about. For the first time, his voice cracked. You really think this ends with a leak? With some journalists? You have no idea who's involved. How far this reaches. Darren raised an eyebrow at me. I know enough, I said. Enough to burn every one of you. Tyler hissed. You won't survive this. I smiled. We'll see. I tapped the button, killing the call. Darren turned, eyes serious now. He's not bluffing, Leonard. You heard him. This isn't just the Caldwells. These files, they touch government officials, Fortune 500 execs, federal contractors, people with armies. I nodded. I figured. What's the plan then? I stared straight ahead. We finish it. No hiding. No running. Darren shook his head, half laughing. You are a madman, Leonard. Then his screen lit up. Breaking news banners exploded across every major outlet. Massive financial leak uncovers global money laundering network. Caldwell real estate empire linked to offshore fraud, corruption scandals. Multiple arrests reported in early morning raids. And then the most damning headline of all. U.S. Senator, banking executives implicated in Caldwell file leak. Darren leaned back, stunned. It's happening. I watched as chaos ignited worldwide. Phones buzzed. Social media detonated. News anchors stammered as wave after wave of documents surfaced. FBI offices were swarmed with demands for action. Protesters gathered outside Caldwell corporate headquarters. International law enforcement launched coordinated raids. But even as the world reacted, I knew it wasn't over. Because somewhere out there, Kane was still coming, and Tyler wasn't going down without trying to drag me with him. Darren checked the radar scanner. Leonard, movement, they've tracked us again. I nodded. Then it's time for the last move. Darren grinned, dark and wild. Final checkmate? I chambered around. Yeah, let's finish this. We ditched the Prius 2 blocks from a freight yard on the outskirts of town. Darren popped the trunk, grabbed a backpack full of gear, and slipped on a ballistic vest. We won't outrun them, he muttered, scanning the dark yard. We make a stand. I nodded, checking the pistol one more time. Let's make it count. The freight yard was perfect, open lanes, containers stacked 4 stories high, shadows deep enough to vanish in. Darren pulled up the drone feed on his tablet. 2 SUVs inbound. 6 armed, Kane's with them. My pulse slowed, steady, focused. I took cover behind a rusted shipping container. Darren climbed to the second tier, setting up his signal jammer and a high-powered frequency disruptor. His voice came through the earpiece. Once they're in range, no comms, no GPS. They won't be calling for backup. Headlights pierced the yard, engines idling, doors opened, boots hit gravel. Then, Harlan Kane's voice echoed, calm and venomous. Leonard, you made a hell of a mess. I stayed silent, gripping the pistol. Thought you could hide behind data leaks, behind headlines. You forgot one thing. His tone dropped, lethal. Information doesn't stop bullets. I peeked around the corner. Kane stood dead center, black tactical gear, pistols holstered, but hands loose, ready. His men fanned out, controlled, professional. Darren's voice, "On your mark." I waited. Waited until the last guy stepped past my position. Then, "Now." Darren flipped the jammer. Lights on the SUVs flickered. Earpieces went dead. Panic rippled. I stepped out from behind the container. "Looking for me?" Kane spun, hand going for his weapon, but I fired first. 2 rounds. One hit his shoulder, the second grazed his side. He stumbled back behind cover. His men opened fire, bullets ripping into the containers, sparks flying. Darren responded from above. Pop, 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 dropping one of the shooters clean. I sprinted, weaving between containers, flanking left. Another guard stepped out. Too slow. I drilled him center mass. He crumpled. Kane shouted, furious, "Find him!" But Darren was 2 steps ahead. He'd set remote-triggered flash charges along the lane. As 2 guards rounded the corner, boom! White light. Screams. I stepped in and put them both down. 3 left. Kane's voice snarling now. "Come out, Leonard. You know how this ends." I ducked behind a forklift, checked the mag. Half full. Darren chimed in. "South side. Kane's moving. 2 flanking." I sprinted left. Came up behind one. Dropped him before he could react. Another bullet cracked past my head. I dove, rolled, came up firing. Hit the shooter's leg. He screamed. Dropped his rifle. I finished it. Then silence. Just Kane. His voice echoed. "You think this changes anything? You think blowing this wide open hurts people like me? We don't die. We rebuild." I stepped into the open. "Yeah, but sometimes we don't get the chance." Kane stood by the SUV, bleeding, cornered. He raised his pistol, but Darren's shot cracked from above. 1 round, clean. Kane collapsed. Gone. Silence, only the wind. Darren climbed down, wiping sweat from his face. "It's done." I stood there, staring at the body of the man they sent to erase me. "No," I said. "1 piece left." Darren raised a brow. "Tyler." I nodded. "He's the last one." Darren grinned, dark. "Then let's finish the job." The sun was rising as we drove into the heart of the city. Streets were empty, save for the occasional early commuter. The world outside had no idea that one of the most powerful criminal empires was falling apart in real time. Darren tapped the screen on his tablet. News updates were flooding in faster than he could read. Federal agents raid Caldwell headquarters. Interpol issues warrants for multiple executives connected to Orion Holdings. Caldwell family assets frozen globally. But 1 piece was missing. Tyler. Darren located him within minutes. Pulled from a traffic cam. Private jet prepped at North Point Airfield. If he gets on that plane, he's gone. I clenched the wheel. Not happening. We burned through the highway, tires screaming as we approached the airfield perimeter. Darren hacked into the gate remotely. It slid open just long enough for us to blast through. Private hangar, end of runway. There it was. A sleek black jet. And Tyler, standing at the foot of the stairs, barking orders at 2 handlers while checking his watch. He didn't see us until the car skidded to a halt 30 feet away. Darren raised the rifle, but I stopped him. "No, he's mine." I stepped out. Tyler froze, stunned, but only for a second. His face hardened. "You don't know when to quit, do you?" "No," I said, walking toward him. "And neither did you." His hand went to his jacket. "A pistol." I already had mine drawn. "Don't." He hesitated, glanced at the jet, then at me. "You think this matters? You think any of this stops people like me?" "No," I said, steady. "But it stops you." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Tyler scowled. "You destroyed everything." I stepped closer, lowering the gun just slightly. "No, you destroyed it. I just made sure the world finally saw it." His jaw clenched. "I should have finished you when I had the chance." I nodded. "Yeah, you should have." For a moment, neither of us moved. 2 men, father, son, bound by blood, divided by greed, betrayal, and choices that could never be undone. Then, tires screeched at the airfield gate, black SUVs. FBI agents piled out, guns drawn. "Freeze! Hands up!" Tyler hesitated. I didn't. I stepped forward, grabbed his wrist, and yanked the pistol from his hand before he could even blink. "It's over," I said quietly. Tyler's face, once so smug, so untouchable, cracked, Defeated. The agents swarmed, threw him to the ground, cuffed him. One agent glanced at me. "You Leonard Carter?" I nodded. He looked me over, bloody, bruised, worn down, then nodded with respect. "Hell of a thing you just did." As the jet engines powered down and Tyler was shoved into the back of a black SUV, Darren walked up beside me, grinning. "You did it, man." I nodded, watching as the last of my past was hauled away. "Yeah, we did." The chaos faded, the sirens dimmed, and for the first time in a long, long time, I felt free. No house, no fortune, no fake family, but free. I turned to Darren. "So, what now?" He shrugged. "We've got skills, we've got experience, and the world's full of bad people who think they're untouchable." A slow smile spread across my face. "Uber's not really hiring for that." Darren chuckled. "Yeah, but maybe someone else is." We walked back to the car, broken but standing. Survivors, warriors. Because when the world kicks you out, you learn real fast how to kick back. And this old man? I wasn't done yet. Not even close.